Alireza Firouzja makes a massive blunder against Hans Niemann. This battle is from round 5 of the FIDE Grand Swiss event just played last month. And after their last face-off in the Sinkfield Cup, expectations were high for another epic battle. We have Alireza with the white pieces, and he starts with knight to f3, the ready opening, a nod to classical chess strategy. d5 by Hans, g3, and this is called the King's Indian attack. It's a versatile and aggressive opening system. The idea is usually you put the bishop on g2, you castle, you go d3, you go e4, expand your pawn's kingside, and attack the opponent's king. Knight f6, bishop g2, e6, castle. Pretty standard. Bishop e7, d3, castle. So far we have a textbook example of a King's Indian attack and a nice solid setup from Hans Niemann here. Rook e1. This move has only been played 31 times in the ChessBase database. This is a rare move, so it's going to be interesting to see what Alireza has cooked up here. Knight to c6 by Hans, and this is an aggressive move. Both of these players like to win, and they like to attack. They like tactical positions. And the idea here is Hans would love to play e5, so this knight supports the e5 break, and Alireza has to move his d-pawn a second time, so it went d3, d4, just to prevent e5. That's a win for Hans right out of the gate, because he got Alireza to essentially waste a move, and the computer is saying this position is already equal, 0.0. Now we see a5. This was a confusing move at first, but I looked into it, and the reason why is white would love to play b3. This move is ready for b3 because then black can play a4 and challenge that queenside fianchetto structure with the pawns on a2, b3, c2. So we got knight c3 now for Firouzja, and he wants to play pawn to e4, grabbing his own center control. So then we see knight to e4 by Hans, the top move, not allowing that pawn to jump up. Knight to b5, a4, and bishop to f4. Aiming at c7 with the double attack, Alireza is pressing for the initiative. Bishop d6, knight e5, knight takes e5, that's the first trade of the game. And here there's an interesting choice for Alireza. He can play d takes the knight, bishop takes the knight, or bishop takes the other knight. All of those are good moves. He decides to play d takes e5. It's probably the strongest move, and it's the attacking approach. He accepts doubled e-pawns, but whenever you see a pawn placed on e5 against pawns on these squares, what this e5 pawn does is it controls f6, it locks up this pawn on e6, and it opens up potential for a kingside attack, because now white has more kingside space, right? This pawn being up keeps that pawn back, and black is cramped, whereas white has more space behind the pawn on e5. So aggressive play by Alireza. Bishop e7, c4, bishop d7, knight goes back to a3. And if black were to capture on a3, if Hans grabs that knight, it does give Alireza the bishop pair. And that's going to be a better position for white. That's why he doesn't take the knight and double the pawns. Bishop c5, poking at this f2 pawn, we see a double attack. Rook f1, f6, and now the game is shifting. Tactics are in the air, because we see the double attack on f2 in combination with this rook coming down the f-file. Hans is playing for the win. Alireza is also playing for the win. That's why I love watching these two players. E takes f6, knight takes f2. Look at this. Hans is going for the kill. Rook takes back, bishop takes with check, king takes, and now we see Alireza's king out in the open, and Hans is pressing, and he's finding the best moves. He finds queen takes f6. This hits the b2 pawn. It pins the bishop on f4. e5 is a threat. g5 is a threat. There's only one move for Alireza to save this position. He does find it. It's king back to g1. Queen takes b2 played by Hans. And now at this point, Hans has a rook and two pawns for a bishop and a knight. So typically a bishop and a knight are stronger than a rook and pawn, but a rook and two pawns, the material does favor Hans. Like you can see up here above the board, it's +1. And you can tell Alireza is nervous here because he starts to try to offer a queen trade. He doesn't like the vulnerability of this king, on g1 with the f2 pawn gone. So he plays queen c1. And Hans says, no thanks, and goes for another pawn with queen takes e2. Now c takes d5, e takes d, bishop takes with check, the king moves, and at this point, it looks like bishop takes b7 is a move, but that's actually a mistake because black could play rook a to b8 after that, and it gives black a lot of activity for the material. So bishop takes b7 is a mistake. Alireza plays queen to c3, rook a to e8 by Hans, centralizing the rook, putting it on an open file. Now bishop takes b7, and at this point, Hans has a rook and one pawn for the bishop and a knight. Stockfish gives an eval of 0.5 for black, so half a pawn edge for Hans, and that's due to his piece activity. Look at how well placed both of these rooks are, and look at how well placed the queen is. Compare that to some of these white pieces that are sort of out of play. And here we see a really cool move by Hans. Pawn to c6. He's shutting out this bishop, so that bishop is trapped. It can't come back into the action. And there's a threat here of rook takes f4, sacrificing the rook for the bishop, blowing open the white king position. What a move. So c6, very subtle. This is a great move. Bishop takes c6 would be met by bishop takes back. And this is not a good position for white. It's actually losing because after queen takes, there's queen to b2, forking the rook and the knight. And white is busted. Let's actually look at that line real quick. Queen b2, and what if the queen comes down to c1? The computer is saying, oh wow, queen to d4 check is a good line. And then rook c8, but this should be a win for black. All right, so back to the game. So there's no bishop takes c6. Knight to c4 played, and at this point, each side had 6 minutes on the clock. So the tension's starting to rise, the clocks are ticking down, and they each have to make 16 moves because we're only on move number 25. Now we see rook to e4, a double attack, hitting this knight with both the rook and the queen. So Alireza has to react to that. And you might be wondering, could you still play rook takes f4 here? Well, let's look at it. Rook takes f4, g takes, rook e6. There's a very nice reply. It's the only move that saves white in this position, and it does give white an advantage. Knight to e5. So that's why this knight to c4 move was so strong, because the knight on e5 defends g6. There's no rook to g6 check followed by queen g2 checkmate. So nice idea, this knight c4 move. Rook e4 played, but now we see a losing blunder by Alireza. He plays queen to d2. The combination of having his vulnerable king position and being low on the clocks, you really don't want to be the side that's defending in that scenario. So the initiative has been in black's favor for a while now. Clocks are low. Massive blunder. Now, can Hans simply take the knight on c4? That's probably what you're wondering. Yes, he can. And that's what he played in the game. So what should have been played here, instead of queen to d2, knight to d2. Knight to d2 was just a solid move. But Alireza says, I'm going for the queen trade. Hans finds the best move. Queen takes c4. The engine is screaming here. 6-point Stockfish advantage for Hans Niemann. Is he about to take down Alireza in this game? Queen takes d7 played. And now rook to e2 played by Hans. He blunders back. He gives away the advantage instantly. It's now 0.00 with best play. What should he have done? The only winning move, which is kind of hard to find in time pressure, rook f to e8. But it does have a really clear threat of rook e1 check, followed by a checkmate. And white is in big trouble here with the b7 bishop shut out. And black has all of his major pieces active in this position. So rook f to e8, winning move. So rook e2 played in the game, blunder. Now there is a mistake back by Alireza, so Hans is still in the driver's seat after this. Bishop takes c6. Both of the players are down to 1 minute. That's why they're swapping these mistakes back and forth, and they have 13 moves to go until they get bonus time at move 40. This is just insane that they have to play this quickly. Queen c5 check. King goes over. Queen comes down to f2, threatening a checkmate. Queen h3. Rook e1 check. Hans is finding top move after top move. So can he utilize this second chance, the mistake by Alireza of playing bishop takes c6, to secure a victory? Let's find out. Rook takes, queen takes, king g2, check, king g1. Now here, the best move in the position for Hans, the only move to keep the clear advantage is pawn to a3. And the reason why is because the bishop is ready to capture the pawn on a4. So essentially what Hans should do is play a3, then take the pawn on a2, get the queen out of the way, push the pawn later. If Hans were to play queen takes a2 immediately, bishop to e4 creates equal chances for white. So that's why he doesn't just grab that pawn right away. But instead, he plays queen to d1 check, and now queen to f1 works because after what happens in the game, takes, g5, there's bishop takes a4. So Hans loses the important pawn, the a pawn. And even though he's getting a rook for a bishop, it's a rook for bishop and pawn, and it's a solid enough position for Alireza that he should be able to hold the draw. But they're only on move 37. So king g7, bishop b5, king h6, pawn to a4, f takes g, h takes g. That's move 40, and that's move 40 for black. Now the players can relax. They got their bonus time. This position is a dead draw, according to the computer. They play it out a few more moves, but essentially, Hans is not able to make progress. Alireza can just shuffle. As long as his bishop keeps this pawn defended, there's no way for Hans to create any sort of advantage here. A draw was agreed. Move 53. Alireza narrowly escapes a loss to Hans Niemann. Hans Niemann is a monster. I mean, he's taken down Magnus Carlsen already in Classical. He almost takes down Alireza Firouzja right here. But it's really fun to see a battle of the two attacking styles. I hope you guys enjoyed this game recap, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.